Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Chicago Dialogue Dissection. Alright, of course I'm talking about the group Chicago Transit Authority, who came on strong in 1969 and is still up and running today with different band members, some of the originals. Robert Lamm is a stalwart performer for Chicago. Robert Lamm was born October 13th, 1944. That made him 24 years old when Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger were bayoneted to death by NATO bayonets. Peter Cetera was one of the original members of Chicago. He also was born in 1944, September 13th. September 13th, 1944. That makes him exactly 1 month older than Robert Lamm. And Peter Cetera was also 24 years old when we had the Tate LaBianca bayonet murders, brought to you by NATO Gladio forces. Then we have Terry Kath, who was born in January 1946, January 31st. He was murder-suicided, done away with, at age 31, and that happened in January 1978. He was 23 years old when Sharon Tate was bayonet murdered. Now, I want to focus on this one particular song called Dialogue, which was allegedly written by Robert Lamm and published by Columbia Records in October 1972, when Robert Lamm would have been 27 years old. Now, do I think it's theoretically possible that Robert Lamm actually wrote a social engineering commentary song at age 27? Yeah, I believe it's possible. Do I think it's likely that Columbia Records would publish a Robert Lamm song? No, I don't think so. I don't think they would publish anyone's song that was written unless it goes through the CIA editing department and they make changes. I don't think Neil Young can write "He Was a Miner for a Heart of Gold" to celebrate the 1849 gold rush psychops without adult supervision, okay? I don't believe any artist, any singer, any recording artist for Columbia Records, the CBS, Masonic Eye, is permitted to control ideas that they create. They're allowed to sing and appear on the album, but their wardrobe, the studio orchestra, musicians, the marketing and promotion of their songs, the radio playtime, the Billboard ratings are all controlled by the invisible hand and has nothing to do with Robert Lamm or Terry Kath or Peter Cetera. They have absolutely zero control whatsoever over any intellectual property that they may or may not have written. And that includes Bob Dylan. Because you do know that Columbia Records, before they published Dialogue with Robert Lamm and Chicago, which was known as The Big Thing when it was in Chicago, was not known as Chicago, it was known as The Big Thing. It was the moment that they signed a contract, the moment that Robert Lamm and Peter Cetera and Terry Kath and James Pankow, when they, as a group, signed a contract with Columbia Records, which was in June 1968, their name was changed from The Big Thing to Chicago Transit Authority. That's a decision that Columbia Records made. And then their wardrobe, the type of music that they were permitted to play, that would be presented on the radio and on albums that would be sold, was decided by the suits upstairs. And before Robert Lamm penned his Dialogue, you do know that in 1926, Louis Armstrong was playing the trumpet and singing. You know, before James Pankow was, we had Louis Armstrong doing that in 1926 for Columbia Records. And you do know in the 1940s, Frank Sinatra, who did not write his music, he was performing songs and contracted under Columbia Records. And we had Tony Bennett, Doris Day, we had Rosemary Clooney, we had Johnny Mathis, we had Barbara Streisand, We had Janis Joplin, and they were all singing songs that appeared on the radio and on Columbia Records albums, and none of those people wrote their music. Okay, Barbara Streisand did not write her music. Frank Sinatra did not write her music. Tony Bennett did not write his music. Doris Day did not write her music, okay? Rosemary Clooney did not write her music. Johnny Mathis did not write his music. So why am I supposed to believe that Robert Lamm writes his music? He'd be like one of the very few, if any, artists that are allowed to write their music and appear on Columbia Records. Why should I believe Paul McCartney and John Lennon wrote their music? They didn't write jack before they signed a contract with EMI. And why didn't Robert Lamm write dialogue before 1968? Then maybe I'd believe it, right? But he didn't have much in the can, so to speak, before they inked and signed their name to the line, The Deal with the Devil, in 1968. They didn't have a full catalog. And I do believe I saw an interview where one of the Chicago members, I think it was Peter Cetera, that said that they were all holed up in a house in Laurel Canyon for 6 months creating music and playing. Well, that's completely implausible. It's highly likely that they would receive provisional housing in Laurel Canyon, but as far as producing music, I don't think they could do that. I think that's done by a professional songwriting team in an office and studio at a different location than a crowded house in Laurel Canyon. Those are flop houses. That's where you put the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt and Frank Zappa, another Hollywood fraud, Frank Zappa. Really like to emphasize that he never created a single success other than his daughter Moon Unit singing Valley Girl. I think that was the highlight of the Frank Zappa Hollywood experience, was Moon Unit's Valley Girl, which has to do with Encino, San Fernando Valley Porn Center, if you didn't know. And you do know that Moon Unit did attend private schools, which are highly expensive. So I'm sure that Hollywood took care of Frank Zappa, who had no commercially viable products whatsoever during his long career, his lengthy career, where he produced no commercially successful music. So he has a social engineering purpose, just like Robert Lamm and Terry Kath did. All right, so that said, let's just get into the lyrics of Dialogue, and I will, prove my case, or I will attempt to demonstrate to you the problems that I have with Robert Lamm writing these lyrics. Okay, so it's a dialogue between Terry Kath, who's playing the rhythm guitar, and Peter Cetera, who's got a wonderful voice, and he plays the bass guitar. And they are opining over the political consternation of the Vietnam War and the peace movement and the tune in, turn on, drop out, Timothy Leary manufactured consent movement of getting high and dropping out. That's all plugged into the spider web of dialogue. So let's dissect dialogue. Okay, the opening line, the question begin with Terry Kath. Are you optimistic about the way things are going? Peter, no, I never ever think of it at all. Terry asks, don't you ever worry when you see what's going down? Peter Cetera, well, I try to mind my business. That is no business at all. Terry, when it's time to function as a feeling human being, will your Bachelor of Arts degree help you get by? Peter, I hope to study further, a few more years or so. I also hope to keep a steady high. It's kind of a Timothy Leary reference. Then Terry Kath asks, will you try to change things, use the power that you have, the power of a million new ideas? Peter, what is the power you speak of and the need for things to change? I've always thought that everything was fine. Everything is fine. Terry, don't you feel repression just closing in around? Peter, no, the campus here is very fine. Terry, does it make you angry the way war is dragging on? Peter, well, I hope the president knows what he's into. I don't know. Ooh, I don't know. Terry, don't you see starvation in the city where you live? All the needless hunger and needless pain? Peter, I haven't been there lately. The country is so fine, but my neighbors don't seem hungry because they haven't got the time. Haven't got the time. Terry, thank you for this talk. You know you really eased my mind. I was troubled by the shape of things to come. Peter, well, if you had my outlook, your feelings would be numb. You'd always think that everything was fine. Everything is fine. Then the song pivots to the second part. We can make it better. Yeah, yeah, we can make the world now. We can save the children. We can make it happen. Yeah, yeah. All right, so that's dialogue. You see, they have a reference to Timothy Leary in here. They have a reference to the Vietnam War in here. The war keeps dragging on. They have a reference to Richard Nixon, who is embroiled in Watergate. That's baked into this cake. Do I think that Robert Lamm could put those ingredients into this cake? No, I don't believe Robert Lamm could do that. So me personally, I don't believe Robert Lamm wrote this song. Did he participate in it? Well, he needed to memorize it. He needed to play the keyboard to this song. He didn't sing this song. The song was sung by Terry Kath, who was murdered 6 years after this was allegedly published. Actually, less than 6 years after it was published. Terry Kath went bye-bye. Peter Cetera got booted out of the band and created his own solo career, again with the CIA Hollywood controllers. So Peter Cetera exited the band and is not part of Chicago anymore. And Terry Kath was retired with a 9mm Lugar pistol shot in the head in Calabasas/Woodland Hills Porn Center, San Fernando Valley. So the only person that's really left from dialogue that can speak to this is Robert Lamm. And here's the problem that we have with Robert Lamm, people, is he married Karen Perk. Karen Perk became Karen Lamm. And this is very disturbing, okay? Because I'm here to tell you that Karen Perk came from Indianapolis. She came from Indianapolis, Indiana. You know, where Gus Grisham from Apollo 1 came from, where Neil Armstrong, Apollo 11 came from, where Jim Jones, People's Temple, came from. You know, where Bill and Emily Harris, the people who kidnapped Patricia Hearst, where they came from. Purdue, University of Indiana, Indianapolis, where they came from. Well, that's where Robert Lamm's first wife, Karen, came from. And she inserts herself into the Dennis Wilson story. She marries and divorces Dennis Wilson twice after she marries and divorces Robert Lamm. She injects herself into the biography and television series about Dennis Wilson, who was murdered, suicided, drowned in Marina Del Rey. She inserts herself as the friend of Kitty Menendez in Beverly Hills, where Kitty Menendez really did not live. And Karen Lamm is a social engineering kook who dies mysteriously at age 49 over in near Marina Del Rey in Playa del Mar, which, in case you didn't know, is a Silicon Valley. They call it Silicon Beach instead of Silicon Valley. They make semiconductors. It's over by the Los Angeles airport. It's near Culver City. It's near the Ann Heche fiery car crash that never happened. Karen Lamm died. That's also where Phil Hartman came out of. He went to the junior college over there, Santa Monica Junior College, and he went to high school at Westchester High School, very close proximity to where Karen Perk Lamm died at age 49 of mysterious causes. So there are so many red flags here regarding Robert Lamm that I don't believe he could insert the Vietnam War and Timothy Leary and Richard Nixon into a dialogue song about apathy, pacification and control, and maintaining a steady high, which is what dialogue is all about. It's a pacification and control song. And just to let you know that I'm not just picking on Robert Lamm and Chicago, CTA, let me read you again the lyrics from John Lennon's fake song, Imagine. It's, imagine there is no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I am not the only one. Yeah, there's lots of bank anthropologists that want to get in on this song. But I am not the only one. I hope someday you will join us and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Well, that's a New World Order song. That's a song about pacification and control. You will own nothing and be happy. There is no way in a gajillion years that John Lennon could have possibly written that song. That is against everything that he personally stood for. And the reason I say that is he was also shot in the head and killed at the Dakota in Manhattan, New York, by, I believe, Jose Perdomo, who worked for the CIA and was part of Operation 40 assassination team and personal friends with Frank Fiorini, who you know as Frank Sturgis. And he came from Santiago, Cuba, you know, where Jeff Bezos' stepfather came from, where Fidel Castro was indoctrinated in Jesuit Catholic school in Santiago, Cuba. The murderer of John Lennon came from there, where Fidel Castro came from, where Jeffrey Bezos got his name, Bezos. Miguel Bezos came from Santiago, Cuba, where Jose Perdomo came from. You know that Jeff Bezos, that's not his name, it's Jorgensen. Ted Jorgensen is his biological father. It's Jeffrey Jorgensen, but everybody calls him Bezos, after a person who quite possibly is involved with the CIA. I don't know how the heck he got out of Cuba without permission, right? All right, well, that's my story for today, folks, is that I think that all the music that's produced by Columbia Records and Warner Brothers, which would include Neil Young and his Mining for a Heart of Gold, I don't care if your name is Frank Sinatra, Doris Day, if your name is Rosemary Clooney, Johnny Mathis, Janis Joplin, Barbra Streisand, Madonna. I don't care if your name is Bob Dylan, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen. They're all Columbia Records artists. I don't care if your name is Robert Lamm. You don't have more authority than Frank Sinatra does. You don't have more authority than Tony Bennett or Rosemary Clooney did. Okay? They didn't write their music. Barbra Streisand didn't write her music. Isn't she a bigger star than Robert Lamm? Okay? And Robert Lamm used to open at the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is a CIA-owned and controlled Elmer Valentine facility, and Chicago, renamed from the big thing, opened for Janis Joplin. And you know, Janis Joplin was a Columbia Records artist, and she was murdered on October 4th, 1970. So I think Robert Lamm doesn't really have a pot to piss in, because, see, if he doesn't agree that he wrote that song, then he can end up exactly how Janis Joplin, a woman who he worked for, and be dead as a doornail. Don't make me go down the list of all the Hollywood actors and singers who got put down, besides Judy Garland, besides Janis Joplin, besides Cass Elliot. It is a very long and voluminous list. Have a great day. Please share my videos, hit the like and subscribe. I am Shadow Band. Take care.